and the crustacean, crayfish, the shrimp. We got shrimp in Tennessee, freshwater shrimp.
We have freshwater shrimp. Mm-hmm. They're tiny, but we have freshwater shrimp. Of course, not all shrimp are quite tiny, but ours are.
I like the jumbo shrimp. Preferably fried. They're on a skewer either way.
There you go.
Tennessee WildCast is live on the air with the latest on hunting, fishing, boating, and all things outdoors. Make welcome your host, drummer and outdoor expert novice, Jason Harmon.
Hey, hello everybody, and welcome to this edition of Tennessee WildCast. Thank y'all for tuning in. Got a great show for you today. It's all about the biodiversity of Tennessee, and excited to have Miss Pandy Upchurch with us, and she's our assistant chief in the biological diversity division. I think I got that right.
Absolutely.
All right.
There you go.
Glad to have Pandy with us, and I've got Mr. Don King with us today.
Yes, sir. Thanks for the invite, Jason. Pandy, glad you could join us.
I'm glad to be here.
So we're excited about today's show. She gave this presentation. We're going to go through a presentation today, but she gave this at the last commission meeting, and I thought, man, this will be a great addition for WildCast, and folks at home need to know about this kind of stuff.
Sure thing.
The agency has their hands in a lot of things, and this is a pretty cool side that we are a part of. So.
That's right. We've got 5 new commissioners that have come on board. One of them is we've known him before in a previous life as a commissioner, but 4 new ones. So it was really good for you to be able to share this information with them, Pandy, because a lot of times, you know, our commissioners are our bosses. You know, they're the ones appointed to oversee our agency, and so anyway, it was great educational, and I learned a lot too. So I always do from you.
Well, thank you.
Yeah. Well, let's jump right in and start with the first slide. There's the title slide, Pandy Upchurch, assistant chief. But we'll start with the diversity of Tennessee and the most wildlife diverse inland state. Tell us about that.
Absolutely, and a lot of folks don't know that. They, I led off with the commission saying, most folks just don't realize how blessed we are in Tennessee to have such diversity. We are the most biodiverse inland state in the country, and we can't compete with coastlines. So we don't have marine animals, but we've got everything else. Because Tennessee is such an incredibly diverse state, both as far as the species goes, as far as the habitats go, the topography of the state is so diverse.
It's amazing how it changes across the state.
Absolutely. Going from the swamps of Reelfoot, all the way to, the coastal plain. Folks forget about these in-between zones, like the coastal plain, which have their own, set of species out there, especially in West Tennessee when you've got the herpetology going on with the amphibians and the reptiles.
Right.
And then you get to Middle Tennessee with the cedar glades, incredibly unique habitats that have incredibly unique species associated with them, and then moving on to the plateau, which has some of the most broad spread forest in the state. So because of those forests that are still there, we have a lot of biodiversity there. And then moving on to the ridge and valley, and then of course the mountains. And so the mountains are incredibly diverse as far as especially amphibians, salamanders in particular. And not only are we in the sweet spot as far as rainfall, we have a lot of rainfall in Tennessee. We're blessed with so many rivers, 60,000 miles of streams in the state, and then that diverse topography. But, the glaciation period, everything just kind of turned in our favor as far as the glaciers coming down. They pushed a lot of species into Tennessee, but they didn't cover us up, so they stopped. And so they pushed things here, put a lot of animals here. Again, that topography divided them up. They speciated, and so that gives us an incredibly wonderful, diverse state.
That's a new term, speciated.
Yes.
I heard that one. So mammals, 77 mammals in the state.
Yes.
And 56 reptiles, 32 snakes, nine types of species of lizards, 15 turtles.
There you go.
77 amphibians, 21 frogs and toads, and 56 salamanders.
And you know what? So a lot of times when we're talking about biodiversity, we're talking a numbers game, and those numbers are always changing. They're always changing. I mean, that's our job in the biodiversity division, is go out there and look for things, find out where things are, map where they are, so we'll know where to manage them. But so you see that frogs and toads, that's actually 22 now.
Okay.
Because we've got sometimes we have frogs just come in and call, and okay, we'll put them on the list. So the Plains leopard frog is a new one from West Tennessee.
Huh.
So,
Do you seem like you find new ones regularly? Like I guess the frog was the last one you found, or something.
As
new?
far as frogs go, and a lot of times with things like crayfish, with the DNA things these days, being able to look at species chromosomes, a lot of times they're being divided up based on their chromosomes as well. So that speciates things as well, creates new species. But every now and then, so for bats. Forever, it was 14 species of bats, and then it's 15 species of bats, because we found a Brazilian free-tailed bat in Clarksville in a gymnasium. So you put it on a list.
That's a strange place to have a bat.
I know, but we've had 2 Brazilian free-tailed bats in Clarksville. So some of these military animals get interesting too, as far as Fort Campbell and Arnold Air Force Base. I don't know about the military, but sometimes you end up with a new species on military bases.
All right, well, let's move on. We've probably said this already. Most biological diverse inland state in the U.S., number one in total fish species.
The Duck River is the most diverse river in North America. National Geographic did a presentation on that in 2010. They did a magazine.
That was quite a presentation, wasn't it?
Yes,
that was really good.
Yes, that was an incredible magazine article. In Tennessee, made the news as far as biodiversity in 1 square meter. In the Duck River. So most diverse river in North America. There's more fish species in the Duck River than all of the European rivers combined. So, I mean, folks don't realize how special. I wouldn't live anywhere else in the world but Tennessee.
And you grew up here, didn't you?
I did, and I haven't traveled far because I'm still on the same farm I grew up on. So
I think I'm the same way.
Yeah, I went to school 8th and Broad, even Fog. So you don't get much more Nashvilleian than that. I'm from Nashville, from Tennessee, and glad to be here.
Tennessee is just a cool state.
It is.
It's amazing.
Absolutely.
So, 297 nesting birds.
Yes.
319 fishes. The numbers on the mollusk and the mussels and all that: 517, 146 mussels, clams, 371 snails. Man, and the crustacean, crayfish, the shrimp. We got shrimp in Tennessee.
Yeah,
freshwater shrimp.
We have freshwater shrimp. They're tiny, but we have freshwater shrimp. Of course, not all shrimp are quite tiny, but ours are.
I like the jumbo shrimp. Preferably fried. They're on a skewer either way.
There you go. And again, those crustaceans. Actually, Bobby asked me. He said, "I think we've got more, than 78 crayfish now." And I said, "Well, they're out there making new ones as far as looking at their chromosomes. But at last count, we had 78 crayfish."
Hey, let's pause just a second and talk about the Nashville crayfish.
Sure.
Absolutely. Yes.
And tell us a little bit about that. I know it's made the news over the years and
right.
talking about being endangered and
right.
and listed. But anyway, just kind of give us an update on the Nashville crayfish.
Well, the Nashville crayfish occurs in the Mill Creek watershed. It's the only place in the world that it occurs, it and its tributaries. And just right here at Ellington Agriculture Center, 7 Mile Creek runs into Mill Creek.
Right.
And so we have Nashville crayfishes right here off of our campus. And it is endangered. It's been federally endangered for many years, and because of that, when we're permitting, ARAP, aquatic alteration permits, we take crayfish or Nashville crayfish into consideration. So we don't stop projects, but we just take the species into consideration and we try to work around them as far as when we first started looking at the numbers of Nashville crayfish when we were removing dams. So several dams have been moved in the Mill Creek watershed, and we do that so that crayfish can move upstream and downstream, and fish can move upstream and downstream. We try to keep our streams connected. That's one thing that gives us a lot of biodiversity, is the connection of streams. And so when we were doing those dam removals, we have to do crayfish sweeps, Nashville crayfish sweeps. That's what everybody has to do. So you have to get them out of the way where you're doing your work. So you move them upstream out of harm's way. But we were seeing that we were having to remove hundreds of them to get them upstream.
That's a good thing, right?
That's a good
Yeah,
good thing.
wow.
That's a good thing.
Plentiful.
And they are plentiful, and it's not uncommon for them to be the dominant crayfish in the stream.
Huh.
So so it is being the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service is seriously considering removing the Nashville crayfish from the endangered species list.
Great news.
So that is good news, and they are in the process of removing it from the endangered species list. So,
All right.
so that is good news. So it's almost an experimental thing because it's not very often that you remove a species from the endangered species. I mean, we have the bald eagle, and we'll be doing the same thing as far as monitoring. So we're already monitoring the crayfish. The Nashville Zoo is helping us to monitor them. They're going to monitor them for 5 years. If we see that their numbers are declining, then we can do an emergency relisting.
Okay.
But we're hoping that that's not going to be the case. So we're keeping a very watchful eye. But it's good news that we're being able to remove them from the endangered species list.
All right.
Awesome.
And a lot of this is work that people are out doing that the general public has no clue about.
Right.
You guys go on the sweeps and the bat blitzes and the take an inventory of the salamanders and things. It's just amazing work that you guys do. So.
Absolutely. So we have biodiversity coordinators across the state. We have a coordinator in each region. We've got someone who's doing those surveys in each. That's the best job in the agency. If you're out there looking for a job, the absolute best job in the agency are those folks that get to go out there and stay in the field and do those surveys.
Right.
And that's the majority of their job. Once you move up here to the hill and you're doing administration stuff, it's like you're envious of the good old days.
You find some time to get out when you can, right?
I do.
Get your
I
boots
do.
muddy.
I
Yeah.
do. So yes, I do. Every chance I get out there and follow folks that are doing the research now. But we and those guys in the field, they do. We hadn't gotten to bats yet, but they do a lot of bat research. They're monitoring the caves, and so much of the time we're looking at disease in wildlife these days. So we're looking at things that could affect the biodiversity of the state, and so we have to keep a very watchful eye on those species that we know are at risk.
Yeah.
And so we're out there monitoring those.
Awesome. Well, we're going to keep moving. We're going to run out of time. We got birds. 300 bird species in Tennessee. 300
bird species in Tennessee, absolutely. And, that's an incredible number, and there are folks, David Haney is our bird conservationist for the state, and he's not in the office today. He's out there doing a breeding bird survey. So, the breeding bird surveys in the Tennessee Ornithological Society, that's some of the longest running wildlife surveys it's been done in the state. Huh. And so, folks, we have the Tennessee Amphibian Monitoring Program that does frogs, and those people will complain, I've got to learn 22 different species of frog songs. And I said, listen, there's 300 bird species that if you're doing breeding bird surveys and you're doing point counts out there, you've got to know how to,
You're out listening, and
you've got to, and as you get out there and you're doing fall warblers and spring migrants, I
don't see how you keep up with them.
A little at a time over long periods of time.
Well, if you're like me and you can't keep up with them, you can go to our website.
Absolutely.
TNWildlife.org.
Absolutely.
Click on wildlife, scroll down to birds. Man, there's a lot of information there. Water birds, forest birds, grasslands, shrub birds. 100 common birds of Tennessee. So they're broken down where you can easily research and find. If you see one in your yard, you can compare them. And if there's not bird sounds on there now, there will be, and you can listen to them and that kind of thing. So
That's right. So definitely.
Great resource.
Absolutely. Our Watchable Wildlife pages are great. Wonderful resource.
But that's birds in Tennessee.
Mm-hmm. I know we need to move on, but we've got our little meadowlark over there. One of the things that we do is manage for habitat, especially. The entire agency is constantly managing for habitat, and some of the bird species that we have to watch out for in biodiversity are our grassland bird species, and so we're doing things to improve the native warm season grasses across the state, the native grasslands that we have, and folks don't think of grasslands in Tennessee, but we've got Bark Camp Barrens is one of our wildlife management areas. It's just an incredible. Well, that's one of the first wildlife management areas that I started doing surveys on. And there's Henslow sparrows down there, even short-eared owls. in the wintertime, things that people just don't even imagine,
Wow.
and so we're especially trying to manage for savannas, which are, pine savannas and oak, savannas where you've got open forests with grasses growing in them, but also grasslands, the barrens in that area. So
cool.
Burning. So one of the things
Burning is good.
burning is good. Burning is good. Good fires are good. So, so we do a lot of burning when we can, when we get the opportunity to burn and create good grassland habitat, manage grassland habitat.
Awesome.
For early successional species. Yes.
Well, how about a little bit of this, Don?
Oh, yeah.
Get your questions answered.
It's that time again.
TWRA Q&A.
Thank our Q&A singers there for chiming in, but
Oh, yeah. Claire at the front desk handles tons of calls from the public, as do our regional office personnel across the state. Somebody will find what they think is an orphaned fawn. They'll see it in their yard, and they'll call in. Oh, we've got this poor little orphan fawn. What do we do about it? Pandy, you're the expert.
What do we do?
Yeah.
That's right. I'm the expert at having to tell folks what they don't want to hear, and that is there you go. Most of the time, especially with fawn, the best thing is really to leave them alone.
That's right.
Mama's somewhere. I've being in the region, I would hear dispatch a lot of times, and they'll say, "Leave it, and if it's alive in the morning, it's okay."
oh man, but that's the truth. I mean, it's you got to leave it alone.
Yes, the best thing is to leave it alone. Sometimes, on rare occasions, there will be a wild animal that is in a situation that's dangerous for it, that there's something that you can do about it. If your dog is chasing the deer, you can put your dog up, or you can, get them out of harm's way. If there's a deer on the road that a fawn or something, I honk my horn. If I see the fawn
works a lot of times.
kind of wandering toward the road, just honk your horn. There are a few little things that you can do, but most of the time when it comes to orphaned animals, the best thing is to leave them alone and either let mama take care of them or let nature take care of them.
Yeah.
And then if there's an injured one, there are rehabilitators across the state that you can call, and they often can take them in, but a lot of them are full up this time of year. So
absolutely, and we do have the wildlife rehabilitator list.
TNWildlife.org.
There you go, and so folks can call and see if there's space. But like you say, right now, we're just getting through the spring of the year.
Right.
There's everything's just getting ready to head out there on their own, and so most rehabbers are full up. You can always call.
Yep.
And they'll call you back eventually.
Yeah.
But right now, and the thing is, it's just like doctors. First do no harm. And if in most of the general public, and even I, don't know exactly what you're supposed to do to help an orphan animal, and you can do the wrong thing. So,
Right.
Nature knows best.
Yep.
Nature, I like that. Nature knows best.
There you go.
All right, well, we're going to move on. Bats in Tennessee. Tell us about bats. 16 species.
We have 16 species of bats in Tennessee, and as you recall, for years it was 14, but we found that Brazilian free-tailed bat in Clarksville, and then the Virginia long-eared bat, big-eared bat. I don't know why I said long-eared bat. Big-eared bat.
I don't know how you got that confused with 16 to think about. Big, long.
The Virginia
whatever.
big-eared bat came over in East Tennessee, and so we don't have very many of them, but that's what made our 15th and 16th species that we have. Now, most folks know that bats are at risk. They're in jeopardy. The cave-dwelling bats because of white nose syndrome.
Right.
And we do spend a lot of time monitoring caves with bats to check on the white nose syndrome. And folks don't realize that Tennessee Wildlife Resources Agency owns caves. So one of the ways that we help protect bats is we purchase the caves that they live in. So we have Bellamy Cave that has gray bats in it. We have Pearson's Cave that has gray bats in it. And what's really interesting is that we've sponsor a lot of research. We do what we do, but we also sponsor research at universities. That's where a lot of our endangered species money ends up going. That's what a lot of the First State Wildlife Grant money goes to research. And what is very interesting is that gray bats, which is one of our most endangered species in caves, only hibernates in used to be 8 caves in the whole world, and here in Tennessee, they are immune to white nose syndrome.
Awesome.
And it's just, that's unusual. It's crazy. It's crazy.
Yeah.
But one of the projects that we fund is Tennessee Tech studying the microbiome of the wings of gray bats to see what is it about them that makes them immune to white nose syndrome. So on the disease front, we really are we're trying to get up front, on it. So, we look for ranavirus and chytrid fungus that affects amphibians. We monitor the bat caves for white nose syndrome. We misnet and we find bats that have obviously had white nose syndrome, but they survived. So we see the hope in that. Yeah. But we also see a lot of decline in some of our common species that are now being considered for listing because they are becoming more and more rare.
And I guess in Tennessee, our winters not being as harsh as up north, it tends to be easier on the ones that, or it makes them maybe a little bit more survivable as far as white nose syndrome goes.
That was always the hope, is that you can drive in the wintertime in Tennessee and see moths in your headlights, and you can turn on the front porch light and you'll see a moth flying around in December,
right?
Unless it's really really cold. So we'll have 50-degree days. So yes, so our bat species, if any of them are going to have a chance, they would have a chance to make it through the winter if they came out of hibernation.
And that tends to be what happens with white nose.
Yes, with white nose syndrome, it's a fungus, and so it makes them want to preen. It makes them want to try to get that fungus off of their face and off of their wings. And so when they should be sleeping, when they should be dormant in a torpor state, they're not true hibernators except for the little brown bat. But when they're in their torpor state, they should be sleeping and reserving fat to get through the winter. But instead, they're preening and they're itching. So they're trying to make the fungus stop itching. So they're using up valuable fat reserves. And so then they get hungry or thirsty and they leave the cave in harsh conditions. And,
right.
Yeah. So,
well, to learn more about bats, our website, once again, I've got that. If you're watching, y'all can click or see that. A lot of bats in Tennessee. So go to our website, tnwildlife.org, and that's a great place to find that information. All right, let's move on to snakes, which I've had an encounter with a snake here the other day, and I'd like to talk about that and get your input on that. But we have 32 species of snakes and only 4 that are venomous, so that's pretty cool.
That's very true, and it is cool. It is cool. Most of the time you see a snake, it's going to be harmless and beneficial, because they do eat a lot of rats and mice.
Right, so let me see if I can get this. Cottonmouth.
Yes.
Timber rattlesnake.
Yes.
Pygmy rattlesnake.
Correct.
And copperhead.
There you go.
I got it. I might have studied last
4
night
for
just to make sure.
There you go.
I always forget that. And then the cottonmouth is also called sometimes water moccasin, correct?
Yes.
Well, check out this footage if you're watching at home. I captured this in my backyard the other day, and we've determined it's a king snake eating a garter snake, correct?
Correct. Mm-hmm.
Tell us why snakes do this and what's so cool about this.
Well, it's incredibly cool because even if you don't like snakes, you should like king snakes because their favorite food are other snakes. Mm-hmm. And in this particular case, it's eating a garter snake, so it's eating a snake that could be considered helpful.
A good snake.
A good snake.
Yeah.
But they also eat copperheads. Studies have proven that if you collect the musk of a king snake and you spread a line across where copperheads go, a copperhead will go right up to that line and they'll turn around and go the opposite direction. Wow. So they can smell the musk of a king snake. So king snakes eat other snakes. But they eat reptiles. They'll also eat amphibians. One of the cool things that we see when we're doing surveys are unusual things like this. Mm-hmm. But also, if you catch a king snake, a lot of times you're going to get a twofer because they'll throw up. whatever they be.
Oh, man.
So they'll throw up another snake sometimes. And I've had one throw up a tiger salamander. So,
That's funny.
I know, but yeah, so, they eat other snakes. It's just their favorite food. That's their niche. Their, special, partition in nature is they like to eat other snakes.
Well, I'm happy to have that one around.
Oh, absolutely.
I'm not sure the wife and kids is happy to have it, but I think I've got that king snake's been visiting my garage as well.
Good.
So
they will eat
keeping my
rats.
Mice population
Absolutely.
down.
They'll eat rats and mice too, but they just like to eat other snakes. And when you think about it, in nature, a lot of times you have competition over resources. So sometimes if something can eat something else that's competing for the same resources, well, they're going to just take out that competition.
Nature taking its course.
There you go. Nature taking its course is first course there.
Yeah. I wonder what was anyway. All right, well, let's move on to salamanders. We're going to run out of time. We got about 2-3 minutes here.
Okay.
Salamanders, 56 species. Tell us about salamanders.
And salamanders are one of my favorite things in the whole world. And Tennessee is the salamander capital of the world because we have the biosphere called the Great Smoky Mountains. And again, those glaciers pushed a lot of salamanders into the mountains. And yes, they turned into many, many species up there.
And one cool one is a hellbender. I think those are
absolutely. And so the hellbender is our largest salamander in the state. It's the largest salamander in the country. So and they are we have put them as state endangered. They're not federally endangered. That was looked at and it was decided not to, except for a population in Missouri. But here in Tennessee, we have made them state endangered, and we have a lot of work going on with hellbenders. We work with the zoo. We work with the Tennessee State University. We work with a lot of universities in the state to work with hellbender surveys. We build hellbender nesting boxes to put them in the rivers. We work with the zoo on that, and so it's a multi-state effort in order to try to bring back the hellbenders. And there's projects now going on with private landowners with the NRCS where folks can do best management practices on their land that's adjacent to rivers that have hellbenders in them.
I didn't realize
because
that.
the number one cause of a lot of the decline of hellbenders is water quality associated with sedimentation. So if we can increase riparian zones, if we can keep the soil on the land and out of the rivers, then that's going to be incredibly helpful to hellbenders. So a lot of stuff going on with hellbenders. They're a super cool animal.
Awesome. All right, so let's do this one real quick. 22 species of frogs and toads in the state, and you can find more information about those on our website, twildlife.org. Diverse habitat. It's amazing. Bottomland, hardwoods, and wetlands. 60,000 miles of streams. You mentioned that earlier. The topography is amazing. Karst country, a lot of caves, 10,000 caves.
We've got over 10,000 caves in Tennessee, and TWRA owns 515 of them.
And then non-game definition. Non-game species means any wild mammal, bird, amphibian, reptile, fish, mollusk, crustacean, or other wildlife not ordinarily taken for sport, fur, food, or other commercial use.
And they are all protected.
Yes. So anyway, there's a few numbers. If you're watching, you can check those out. But hey, we're glad you're able to be with us today, Pandy. Great information, a lot of cool information. We'll have to have you back and do more of this.
Absolutely.
Thank you again, Pandy. Great job.
Enjoyed it. You're very welcome.
So thank you all for tuning in and listening and watching to this edition of Tennessee WildCast, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks for tuning in. Stay connected with TWRA by visiting our website at tnwildlife.org and follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Hey, it's all about Tennessee wildlife. It's what we do. Tennessee WildCast will be on the air again next week. We'll see you then.
Hi, I'm Charlie Daniels. When I was a kid, I loved baseball and football and all kind of stuff, but my favorite pastime was when my daddy would get me up early in the morning, we'd go hunting or fishing. Out in the fresh air, on the water, or back in the woods, and you learn a lot. You got kids, take them hunting, take them fishing. Join me. Buy a hunting or fishing license. Let's keep wildlife in Tennessee. That's a doggone good thing.
Buy your license today at GoOutdoorsTennessee.com.